Do you know the Bible is God's holy word? Do you know it is inspired, inerrant, and infallible? If so, like, share, subscribe, and support this podcast. For we are Maranatha Ministries, and our redemption draweth nigh. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. I'm your host, Matthew. Tonight we're doing another fellowship, and to be honest with you, I don't know what we're doing. I had expected to get some feedback from Jenny on what she wanted to do a couple of weeks ago, but she didn't send me a coherent enough question to qualify. So I'm not sure what we're going to do tonight. So, Tammy, do you have anything you want to talk about?
I would like to have some clarifications with the kings on the timeline, how they fit with Trump. I mean, what could we expect looking at when you're talking Trump being Nebuchadnezzar and his son Belshazzar, and then we're looking at Cyrus and Darius and who else? And then you were talking about the horns. I didn't get to listen to all those, but how is this fitting with what's coming when the Assyrian finally shows up? How many are we going to see come up?
Okay, how many of the horns you're talking about?
Yeah, because you're talking about the unicorn, and then you're talking about a reindeer horn, and you're talking about, I don't know how many horns, because I had bad audio. I was in the car, and the audio was bad, and my mom was trying to talk to me, and I'm trying to drive through construction at nighttime. Oh, boy.
Yeah, well, it just sounds like you need to re-listen to it. Yeah, you're kind of scatterbrained. Yeah, yes. You definitely need to re-listen to that. So really, I can't speak to that at length because you don't have a firm foundation yet. So you need to listen to it because I presented it in the order it should have been received.
Okay.
So
I shall go back and try to listen to all of that all over again because, yeah.
So, okay, Sherry, do you got anything you want to talk about?
Well, I did kind of want to see if I understood correctly because I did, as far as the visualization of the horns. I heard 4 horns, one that has actually 10 on it,
mm-hmm.
and the one comes up and takes out 3, leaving
mm-hmm.
the 8 behind, and the 8 is of the 7th but separate from the 7th, if I'm correct in my understanding here, which we at least in that we're talking about the scapegoat and the Assyrian, are we not?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes, we are. So for all intents and purposes, that was a pretty good rundown what she said. Remember, we're dealing with 2 different visions, okay? So Daniel chapter 7 is completely separate from Daniel chapter 8. They are 2 completely different visions. Both speak of the horns, so that can make it really confusing really quickly. Can make it really confusing really quickly. The best way to do this is to understand that those 4 beasts from Daniel chapter 7 is the 4 horns. It is. They're not different. They're the same thing. Out of one of those beasts, comes the Assyrian. These things you know. I mean, these things you have known. I've taught you them from the beginning. So let's just jump over to Daniel. Okay, and we'll just plug these away one at a time. Seems how everybody's asking me about it, so we're just going to have to do it again. It's not like this is a review. You all know that I've done these 100 times with you, and the really good thing is that you've never heard me change my tune. You're never going to hear me change my tune. So you're going to hear the same things that I said 14 years ago. So we're here in Daniel chapter 7. This is during the 2300 days. You have to realize that if you don't have your segments of time right, you have no idea what's going on. You know from this chapter that the four winds of heaven, they do two things. They stir up these four beasts. What are these four beasts? The whole planet has been divided into four kingdoms. The whole planet. Also, during the same time frame, we know that Ezekiel says that the same four spirits of heaven stir up the dry bones and give us life. So this is occurring at the same time. It's not a different time, it's the same time. So let's check out these four beasts. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And four beasts come up out of the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion, and it had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear. It was raised up on one side, and it had 3 ribs between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. Of a beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in my night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful, terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up from among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there on its horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. I watched until thrones were put in its place, and the Ancient of Days, yada, yada, yada. You know, this is the great day of the Lord. This just told you that the whole planet is going to be divided 4 ways. There's going to be 4 world powers. At this point, that's all you need to know. Yes, it gave you lots of other details and cool details about the beast. All those at present moment are completely irrelevant. What this is doing is describing to you how these beasts will engage and administer their respective kingdoms. Take note. The leopard was obviously going to rule by providence, just like it was in Persia. You'd have, whoever was the administrator in that providence, that's going to be another head. So this is what it's saying, that it's going to rule like the Persian kingdom. So that's just one example. I'm not going to dig into all these, because at this point we need to get the broad picture. Okay, so this is these 4 beasts. You see that the entire planet's been divided up 4 ways, and one of these kingdoms, it has 10 horns. It has 10 rulers. So you could look at this as much like a Roman triumvirate, right? 3 people at the top. So take note, right now, the country we're in, it has 50 horns. Yes, it does. Of course it does. It always has. Sherry, how many governors are there in each state?
You had to ask me. I know nothing of politics.
Okay. There's
Sorry.
one governor. There's one governor per each state. So right now, if Daniel was seeing this vision about the United States of America, he would say that this beast had 50 horns. There are 50 chief executives that run this country. Every one of the governors has complete jurisdiction and authority in their state. So that's just an example of what we're taking a look at here. Now, next comes, and you know what comes next? The great day of the Lord. And we're going to skip after that. Okay, let's go after the day of the Lord. All right, after the sixth seal event. Verse 11. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain and the body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beast, they had dominion taken away, yet their lives was prolonged for a season and a time. So take note. The Assyrian false prophet, he survives the great day of the Lord. He survives it. He is clearly coming to power, and you're told the whole reason why the Great Tribulation takes place. It just told you. In two simple verses, it told you what was going to happen during the Great Tribulation. So, with this in mind, we realize what happens, that for some rhyme and some reason, these governments are working together. These beasts do not fight one another. They don't. So obviously what's going on is, right first and foremost, economic cooperation. And we know how that's accomplished in today's world. The US dollar is the world reserve currency. You cannot do any trade internationally unless it's in the American dollar. So let's say you're Russian and you want to buy diamonds from South Africa. They have to convert the rubles to dollars to purchase the diamonds. You all know this. So this is why these four beasts are not attacking each other. So that's probably got you surprised right there, because all the other Bible teachers you ever heard, you never heard them say that. They stated that these beasts were in succession and they were one after another. No, that's not what. I mean, we could take the time to tear into the Hebrew and Greek, but no, that's not what this is saying. These beasts are existing at the same time. So, with that in mind, let's jump to 8. Now, in 8, you're going to get that there is a beast in the beginning that is ruling over the beautiful land. Okay? We had this very thing happen in World War I. Why did I say World War I? I know my history. When did the Jews start entering Palestine? Yes, 1912. Why? Why? Because the Ottoman Turks had been obliterated. So you need to understand why nobody talks about the Persians in World War I, because we didn't defeat them. The Russians did. Now, you need to write this down for one. Just write this down really quickly. Anglo, and then hyphen, Soviet invasion of Iran. Reason why you don't know this is it's not in most textbooks, because it doesn't deal with our history. Our history was in part with Europe fighting the Germans. Now, how did the Russians do this? You need to understand that the Russians did this by invading Persia and using the Persian railway to get its weapons and army to the German front to fight the rear guard of the Ottoman Empire. So you need to understand that why wasn't Persia a part of the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire, okay, were Sunni Muslims. The Persians and everybody that was sided with them, they were Shia. Nobody wants you to know this. The history book says I'm going to tell you this because, like I said, Persia was dealt with by the Russians. Okay, that's why they call it the Anglo-Soviet invasion of Iran. But anyway, these were two horns. Everybody on the planet knows it. Most certainly the president of Turkey, Erdogan, he knows it. He's spoken publicly about it many times. He's spoken publicly about this many times. So you need to know that it was the Sunni and it was the Shia that were the two horns of the ram that was defeated in World War I, which set up the present, call it whatever you want to, New World Order, okay? I mean, everybody knows I hate that term because it's used so much by the entertainment industry. I'm telling you the truth. So when you know that, I just give you a little bit of backdrop of what to expect. This action between the goat and the ram has already happened. No, this is not the first time I've told you this. I have told you this 3 or 4 times over the course of the past 14 years. So now that you know that, you need to look for the world being taken over by 4 beasts. And it's right here. It's right here. Okay. So Daniel chapter 8. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared to me, to Daniel, after the one that appeared to me the first time. I saw in the vision, and it so happened that I was in Shushan, the citadel, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision that I was by the river Ulai. Then I lifted my eyes and saw, and there was standing beside the river a ram which had 2 horns, and 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. And the higher one came up last. Of course, if you want to get technical, the one that came up last was the Ottoman Empire. Anyway, I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any who could deliver from his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between its eyes. Then he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing beside the river, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram. He was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke his 2 horns. There was no power in the ram to withstand him, but he cast him down to the ground and trampled him. And there was no one that could deliver the ram from his hand. Therefore the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken, and in its place of it 4 notable horns came up toward the 4 winds of heaven. You should know right now the 4 beasts are the 4 horns. So this is what it's describing. This planet was ruled by 2 horns of a ram. We are talking about, of course, the promised land. That's what's in question here. Remember, in the Hebrew, when it says earth and when it says ground, it's the same word. It's aratz. So by implementing the 4 winds of heaven, you know that these 4 horns are the 4 beasts from Daniel chapter 7. And that it was going to come, there was coming a time when this was going to happen. There was going to be a ram that was exercising dominion over all the Levant. That was the Ottoman Empire. Now, you're wanting to concentrate on the Germans. That's not important at this time. You need to know that these Muslims have exercised dominion over the beautiful land since the 700s. You need to know that. This ram held that dominion from 700 BC all the way to 1900 BC. The ram exercised complete and total dominion. But then came the West. This text was very clear. The goat did not touch the earth, came across the whole surface from the West. From the West. That's where it came from. So at this point, you need to understand that this is the system we have right now. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this planet is basically been divided up into quarters. It's not very hard to figure out. So now we're going to read more, but it's very easy for people to get confused thinking that, well, where's the little horn in this? So all you need to know right now is that you have these 4 horns at play, and they are the 4 beasts. So we're going to get more details here. Okay. Verse 9. And out of one of them came a little horn which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven and cast some of the host and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. So there's a unicorn, right? This unicorn's a goat. It uses that horn to completely destroy the ram. It doesn't say that horn is broken then. It says when it becomes exceedingly great, that means it's acquired so much power that power has to be divvied up, and it's divided into 4. Now, you'll take note, this is exactly what happened to Alexander's kingdom. But unequivocally, this is not Alexander's kingdom. You get that from Gabriel in the second part of this chapter. Twice he comes out and says, no, I'm not talking about Alexander the Great. Twice he does this. But it's going to happen the same way. And we all pretty much know that to be the truth, right? I can name 2 right now after World War II. Of course, the Soviets and the Americans. It's no question. There's no question. There's no question that one of these horns is called the West. It's the United States, it's Great Britain. I don't have to go into too much length. The other horn is obviously the Soviets or the Russians, whatever you want to call them. This does not take rocket scientists, okay? So at this point, out of one of these kingdoms comes this horn. One of the horns gets a spur on it. Okay? So take note that the other 3 horns are still there. They still exist. Even though you're not going to get any more details about them. Now we're just going to get a bunch of information about the little horn. But remember, the little horn is nothing more than the same exact thing that was talked about in the previous chapter when it talked about the little horn. And remember, the little horn in chapter 7 was on one of the beasts, just like right now, the little horn is on one of the horns. Do you understand? Let me ask Sherry. Sherry, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I'm pretty sure I do.
And you understand how bad teachers can twist you around really quickly with this, right?
Yes. Yes.
So at this part, at this point, we're just going to get a whole lot more details about that little horn. But now that it's been made clear to you, the rest should be just additional details. Now that you realize you have a sure footing that the 4 beasts from chapter 7 is the 4 horns. That's why on one of the 4 horns came this little spur, this little horn. So it's going to start talking. It's going to give you more information about the same exact little horn that was in Daniel chapter 7. Only it starts saying things that just aren't physically possible. What is described here is not possible for a human agent. The only way this can happen is if at some point in time, Satan does exactly to the false prophet, exactly what he did to Jesus. He offers him the kingdoms of the earth, and the Assyrian false prophet, he accepts. It's going to talk about that right here. You're going to hear that he assaults the angels. And it's very clear. It mentions the host of heaven and planets in the same breath, so that you know that he has acquired the power of Satan. Satan has given him his power, and you know that from the book of Revelation. You know that's why the whole world worships the beast and marvels after him. It comes right out and tells you, because Satan handed his authority over to him. So you already know that. You just need to listen for it this time. Just listen for it, because God is going to tell you about it. Okay, let's go back to verse 9 of Daniel chapter 8. And out of one of them came a little horn which grew exceedingly great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. And it grew up to the host of heaven. It cast down some of the host and some of the stars to the ground and trampled them. He even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host. And by him the daily sacrifices were taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Because of transgression, an army was given over to the horn to oppose the daily sacrifice and to cast truth down to the ground. He did all this and prospered. So now you know the army that was given to him. The army that was given to him was the host of heaven. You know when this happens in Revelation chapter 12. The devil takes his tail and swipes out 1/3 of the angels and casts them to the earth. And they are put under the authority of the Assyrian false prophet, this little horn. That's what they just described. So, take note. This is also talking about stars and planetary migration. It's also talking about that, but I'm not going to speak to that right now, because that would just be information overload. And if I speak about that, it needs to be during a different session. So anyway, now in verse 13, we're going to get the explanation for it, but listen for it twice. It is not talking about the Persian kingdom. This chapter was very clear. It gave you not only geographical location, it gave you the location of a river that is in the province of Elam in Persia. Yes, it is. Twice Gabriel says, no, it's not this one. This is what has Daniel confused. So if it has Daniel confused, you should know and understand that Gabriel has told him, look, everybody's going to think that this is Alexander the Great when he defeats the Persian kingdom, but it's not. This is about the time of the end. Now, you've never heard any preacher or Bible teacher tell you this, but I'm telling you that is how the chapter ends. So, verse 13. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said to that certain one who was speaking, how long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, the giving of both the sanctuary and the host to be trampled underfoot? And he said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary will be cleansed. Verse 15, then it happened when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the meaning, that suddenly there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai, who called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand, son of man, that the vision refers to the time of the end. Stop the bus. This is not talking about Darius. It is not talking about Alexander the Great. Gabriel just told him the vision you just saw was of the end. He was not speaking about the kingdom which Daniel was standing in. He was not referring to that. Verse 18. Now, as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep with my face to the ground, but he touched me and stood me upright. And he said, look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation. For the appointed time, the end shall be. This is the second time he said it. This is not talking about Darius. It's not talking about Belshazzar. It's not talking about Cyrus. This is in the end. This is in the end. It was never talking about Alexander the Great, not ever. Now we can understand how these things happened, of course, because time is isochronal. God is very clear in the book of Ecclesiastes that time is not linear. He says it multiple times, multiple different ways. He says that that which was is that which will be. And he even tells you why. He says, because God chases after what has been. So you can use Alexander and Antiochus Epiphanes and everybody else to fill in the blanks here to understand how it's going to happen. But this vision is about the end of time. It's not about Darius's kingdom. Okay. Verse 20. The ram which you saw having two horns, they're the kings of Media and Persia. You need to get a hint and a clue real quickly right now. Okay. This is a perfect way to describe the Sunni and Shia kingdoms. I've already stated that it was already exercising dominion over the Temple Mount for 1,200 years. Please look it up. When you look it up, understand that when you read about World War I and you read that the Ottoman Empire was defeated, know and understand. You could change the name. You could call them, okay, Sunni Muslims. The Persians, they were Shia, okay? So don't understand this. What this is describing happened in World War I. Okay, 21. And the male goat is the kingdom of Greece, and the large horn that is between its eyes is the first king. As for the broken horn and the four that stood in its place, 4 kingdoms shall rise out of that nation, but not with its power. Okay. Remember, in Hebrew and in Greek here, let's just talk about the Greek. The Greeks don't call themselves the Greeks. They call them the Hellenites. If you look at this in Greek, it says Helen. It's the proper name, Helen. Hellenites, we have always governed democratically. Okay? So any nation that is governed democratically, that is a Hellenite. We have been Hellenized. That's where this term comes from. Write that down. Look it up in Wikipedia or something. Hellenization. The Romans had been Hellenized. The Romans based everything they did, everything they got off of the Greeks. Everybody knows this. This is common knowledge. This is where we get our system of government from. Common knowledge. It's common knowledge. This is not how the Persians rule. Those people never did it that way, and they still don't. Let's just talk about Jordan. So the dude running Jordan, he's like elected. No. He's the king and you know it. No Muslim countries are ran democratically. You need to understand that. The only ones that's ran democratically are the ones that the CIA overthrew. You all know about Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, we can just go down the list. So understand what this is talking about. It's saying that there were 2 different forms of government, and one form of government would defeat the other one and completely take it over. Of course, that's what's happened. I mean, this was a perfect description of what's happened to the world since 1900. This is a perfect way to describe it. So if we keep reading more, if we keep reading to the end, he's just going to give us a whole bunch of information about this little horn that is on one of the other horns. It's on that beast, that last beast in chapter 7. I'm going to say this again. The 4 beasts in Revelation, or in Daniel chapter 7, is also the 4 horns of Daniel chapter 8. It's the same thing. That's why both of them have appear on them this little horn. So, when we put these two things together, we understand that this terrible beast has 10 horns. It has 10 rulers. It's got 10 rulers. And the little horn uproots 3. So let's do the math. It has 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. The 7 have been eliminated by the one little horn. So it starts out with 10, and after the little horn rises, it's reduced to 8. This is perfectly describing what the book of Revelation says. It says the same exact thing. It says the same exact thing. And it words it in such a way that you know that the last beast has absorbed the other 3 beasts. They're all working together. So, if we read further, boy, we're going to get a whole lot more details about this little horn. So, okay, verse 22. As for the broken horn and the 4 that stood up in its place, 4 kingdoms shall arise out of that nation, but not with its power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, okay, here we go again. In Hebrew and Greek, it's saying the same exact thing. In the latter time, in the end time, okay? When the transgressions have reached their fullness, a king shall arise. This is key. This is telling you when the Assyrian is going to rise. When the transgressions have reached their epitome, when they've reached their fullness, that's when he will rise. And that's what we're doing right now. We're waiting for him to rise. I don't know how worse it can get, but this is what we're waiting on. Okay. Let's get some really good descriptions of him. Having fierce features who understand sinister schemes. Now, first off, take note that this is diametrically opposed to what the scripture says of Jesus' appearance. This is diametrically opposed to what the psalm says is going to be Jesus' appearance. But anyway, his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. Why? We already know from the book of Revelation, because the devil hands over his authority. This is why. This is why it's saying, not by his power is he great. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. He shall destroy fearfully and shall prosper and thrive. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. What is this talking about? Who are the holy people? Okay. Not us. Let me say that again. Not us. We are the bride. We're the woman. We're separate. The holy people in question here are those numbered in Revelation chapter 7. Let's not get into too much detail. That's just information overload, isn't it? Okay. Through his cunning he shall cause deceit to prosper under his rule, and he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many in their prosperity. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. We got that Daniel chapter 7. Yes, he is going to be broken, but not by human. There's no human that can defeat him. Verse 26. The vision of the evening and mornings, which was told, is true. Therefore, seal up the vision. Once again, he says the same thing, for it refers to many days in the future. This qualifies my statements. You know beyond any shadow of a doubt that this is not referring to, let me go back to the top of the chapter here. Let me turn the page. You know that it has nothing to do with King Belshazzar. It has nothing to do with Shushan, the citadel, which is in the province of Elam, or the river Ulai. It's got nothing to do with this kingdom. He said it multiple times. This is about the end. This is why Daniel gets so confused. Now, take note. Let's see here. Where do I want to go from here? Let's skip down to the end. I want you to see where I should have just finished it. Okay, verse 27. And I, Daniel, fainted as was sick for days afterward, and arose. I went about the king's business. I was astonished by the vision, but no one understood it. Now look, Gabriel just told Daniel, hey, this ram is a kingdom of Media and Persia, but this confused him because no, that's not what Gabriel was talking about. He was talking about the end of time. Therefore, unequivocally, beyond any shadow of a doubt, they're not talking about this. Daniel was trying to understand. You mean way in the end of time, there will be another kingdom of Media and Persia? Yeah, that's why he was confused about it. That's why he was confused. So you have this by three separate different points. This is not talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, this is the first time you've ever heard this, right? You've never heard a preterist say this, and you surefire haven't ever heard a dispensationalist say this, because it is their main point to confuse you. That's really what they're trying to do. But like I said, can we get shadows and silhouettes of how it's going to happen in the future based off what did happen? Yes, of course. But just remember, Ecclesiastes is very clear. Time is isochronal. If you're not judging things off of isochronology, you're going to get confused. Okay. Man, I didn't know that Carol had sent questions. Carol says, would not the 10 horns be present at the beginning of the 2300-day sequence? So as the four beasts, right? Yes. These four beasts, they come to power during the 2300. So this is what the law is, Carol. This is why we have this dead space of 965 days from Haggai chapter 2. That's the whole reason. Because as the four winds of heaven are stirring us up, it's also stirring them up. So these coalitions are being made during the 2300. You want to pray us out of here, Tammy?
Yeah. Thank you, Father, for getting us together today and sharing so much information with us. We are so blessed to have Matthew here to teach us today. And I thank you for his family and his children and his wife and keeping them all safe. Father, I thank you for getting Matthew safely home again and that they were able to get a car for the kids and that they were able to make it to Bismarck. And you got them there, Father. This was all you doing this. And we are grateful. We're grateful for all of that. I want to thank you for my brothers and sisters here today. And I pray, Father, that you keep us in your care and bless us, Father, with what we need to get through these times, Father, especially as the days, get darker and the Syrian rises, but that you also equip your church, equip your bride to get through all of this. Bring the dry bones together, Father, and prepare us as you see fit. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen and amen. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, God bless. Godspeed.
Thank you for listening to Maranatha Ministries with Matthew Miller. I appreciate you tuning in. For more information, stop by and visit us at patreon.com/Matthew Miller. Or you can correspond to us via snail mail by writing to P.O. Box 024, Reeder, North Dakota 58649. Now, if you're a God-fearing, Bible-believing, gospel-preaching Christian, please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the Bible, God's holy word. I will make it a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Its words will I hide in my heart, that I might not sin against God.